In this session, we shall see how urban settlements are spatially affected by economic considerations. The four factors of production: land, labor, material, and capital. In this presentation, we will be discussing a little more on land and capital. Capital is very important in capitalist economics. It is that part of a person's wealth which is not consumed but invested back in the production process. It is the estimation of capital which is the true estimation of a person's wealth. This graph is from the book Capital in the 21st Century by Thomas Piketty. It shows the national capital of Britain, which has always been roughly 7 times its yearly income. Although the steam engine is considered the invention that pushed the Industrial Revolution, it was not until electrification that mechanization reached its true potential. Dating this to 1870, we see how the value of agricultural land as part of the national capital sharply fell from 400% in 1700 to hardly anything in 1950. What this means for a planner is that economic production shifted from the villages to the cities after the Industrial Revolution. What is the economic meaning of land? In terms of economics, land can be viewed as a scarce space for locating economic production activities, which is industrial or commercial, infrastructure and dwellings, that could be residential, productive soil that provides organic and inorganic materials for agriculture, and provides aesthetic value for amenity and services. These translate to the land uses which we are familiar with in our land use maps. Of course, in today's master plans, you will find more sophisticated land uses, but these were the basic classifications used at the beginning. The bid rent theory was worked on by Ricardo and Thunen at different times to assign a value to agricultural land. It was later adapted by William Alonso to explain the economic value of urban land and its subsequent usage. It states that different land users will compete with one another for land close to the city center. We will consider the work centers, retail areas, and industries first. Retail establishments are willing to pay higher rents closer to the core as it is most accessible to the customers. Industry, however, is willing to pay to be in the outer core. There is more land available for factories, but it still has many of the benefits of the inner core, which is marketplace and good transportation linkages. This is how the statement may be interpreted as a graph. The core of the city, housing most of its work centers and transport hubs, is called the Central Business District or CBD. Residential areas, as seen by this graph, should have high income housing close to the city because they have greater affordability, and lower incomes further away from the CBD. However, in reality, many people prefer to trade off the accessibility of being close to the CBD and move to the edges of the settlement where it is possible to buy more land for the same amount of money. Lower income housing often trades off greater living space for increased accessibility to the employment close to the CBD. Of course, there is also gentrification when it becomes fashionable for the high income groups to occupy old housing stock close to the city, turning it from dilapidated to vintage. However, exceptions apart, a key factor other than economic value of land which determines placement of economic activities in a city is transport. Some early models of the city were constructed by planners based on the Chicago of 1925. Burgess came up with a concentric model, almost a direct interpretation of the bid rent graph spatially. While fantastic as a pioneering model, it had its obvious limitations. It assumed that there was flat land and no hurdles by natural features. It assumed only horizontal expansion of the city, not vertical. It did not consider the impact of transport and assumed that there was no pre existing city core. The sector model developed by Homer and Hoyt tried to accommodate the value of transport networks in the development of the city. While the CBD is retained at the core, industries tend to develop along the rail network or canal. Middle class and low class residents who are employed by these industries will live around these industries. High class residential will be a low density sector connected to the city by private transport. One key limitation of this model is that it assumes that there will be only one central business district in a city. This was corrected by the multiple nuclei model proposed by Harris and Ullman. A city tends to develop multiple outlying business districts over time. For example, the high-tech city and surrounding neighborhood, which is the center of the IT service industry in Hyderabad. There are multiple factors which determine land use. Land use in a city keeps changing depending on land value, access to transport, marketplace, and amenities. This is a study of the morphology of the land use at the Dundigal Junction in Hyderabad. In 2006, this area was mostly occupied by industries, warehousing, and institutes which enjoyed the availability of large parcels of land and connectivity to the city through the national highway and labor from the villages marked in yellow. The opening of the Nehru Outer Ring Road in this area around 2016 led to sprouting of residential developments in this area owing to the easy access to personal vehicle ownership for the middle class households. The city form has changed in India from the old cities based on social structures to the modern cities based on economic relations. There are some desirable associations. A particular activity will locate itself where maximum profit can be earned. For this, a different combination of rent, transportation costs, labor cost, proximity to market may be tried, and the combination which yields the best result gives the final location for the activity. And some undesirable locations. This location also takes into account the restrictions over the activity and the need to be separated from other non compatible activities, such as locating residential areas away from the industrial, locating large industries with more accessibility to reduce transportation cost and to ease the movement of goods. Thank you.